Hello and welcome to yet another video. This is the 7th episode of the story, and a chance meeting leads Naruto Uzumaki to learn Genjutsu. Sure, he lacks talent, but once Naruto sets his mind to something, he will never give up until he completes it, and Naruto will not stop until he is a master of Genjutsu. Please like and subscribe to show your support. Now let's begin. Naruto's first thought was to wake up with a smile on his face. He awoke, washed his face, put on clothes, and had his morning meal. Naruto was about to enter the village gates, but he had taken his keys and was ready to go. He put on his weapon's holster and wrapped a forehead protector around his head before taking off. However, when he opened the door, a step backwards was observed. His smile widened in size. Kurenai was seen smiling and greeting everyone. "Good morning, Naruto, greeting you. Are you prepared?" "Maybe I am, but can you come in first?" Naruto's eyes twinkled. "I have a message for you, which is important to me." Naruto stepped aside and allowed Kurenai to enter. Behind them, she shut the door. Kurenai took a deep breath and asked, "What do you want me to ask?" "I'm not suggesting you do it incorrectly, but I don't care. I'm not going to disclose this information publicly." Naruto's expression was one of a frown. Naruto's hand was taken by Kurenai in her hands, and she asked why. The majority of ninjas keep their relationships hidden to prevent the enemy from taking advantage of them by harming their family or being taken hostage. She shook her head in confusion. If someone, like the fourth Hokage, disclosed their marriage to another person, what would be the outcome? His wife would be constantly threatened by his enemies, who would use her to get him. Naruto observed Kurenai's eyes. "I'm assuming that's not problematic. If we're the only ones on this planet, what should we do?" Kurenai came forward and gave him a forehead kiss. "Are you able to answer Kurenai's question?" Naruto nodded in reply, his face reddish as he took a deep breath. "Yeah. Let's begin." The majority of the villagers were unaware of Naruto and Kurenai's presence until they reached the village gates. He had a great time walking with his new girlfriend and believed she felt the same way. She not only made her strides more gracefully but also maintained a more relaxed posture than what he was used to. Kurenai's presence brought him greater happiness than usual, and he was grateful for the opportunity to spend time with him. Upon reaching the village gates, Kurenai smiled and returned his gaze. The familiar voice from the nearby guardhouse was, "Hey, Naruto, are you?" Naruto separated from Kurenai and joined forces with Kotetsu Hagane and Izumo Kamizuki, two Chunin. Naruto inquired, "How is everyone? Can you tell me what's going on?" Kotetsu, the person who referred to him, smiled. "Everything seems to be going smoothly." Naruto was greeted by Izumo with a smile, and his gaze pointed towards the village's entrance. "Everything seems to be going smoothly. It would be more appropriate for Kotetsu to concentrate on his work, or else he wouldn't have to worry. Forget halting, Izumo, light up. Naruto is seldom seen around." Izumo's expression was a grimace. Subsequently, he glanced at Naruto. "Naruto, I'm wondering why you're wearing a lot of gray." "It was my teacher's suggestion that prompted it to be proposed. Although I still wear orange attire, I have more choices now." Kurenai, with his arms crossed, was seen by Kotetsu as he looked around. "You're not doing anything foolish, aren't you? Having Kurenai as your mentor?" Naruto's face appeared pink in response. "Kotetsu is correct, but Naruto needs to be cautious. You can never be completely sure about everything." Naruto's eyes flicked as he gazed. The words spoken by Izumo left him feeling uneasy, but he was impressed that the brown-haired Chunin had taken care of him. "Thanks, Izumo." Izumo's expression was one of pure happiness, and he smiled. "It's not a problem at all." Through his spiky black hair, Kotetsu stroked his hand. "Naruto, how did you feel about the Chunin exams Genjutsu?" Kotetsu, what a terrible pass. Kotetsu's expression was one that indicated a frown. Genjutsu was a proficient method for deceiving weak genins. If you were coached by the top Genjutsu instructor in the village, it would have made it more challenging for you. It's a good question. I won't intervene this time. Izumo expressed his astonishment, telling him to avoid using an unreliable Genjutsu again. Despite being the butt of the joke, Kotetsu smiled and Naruto joined in. It's been a great experience, but I think I should join Kurenai-sensei before my second sensei arrives. Izumo smiled and wished the students a successful exams. Show them hell, Kotetsu suggested. After Naruto's departure, he turned to Izumo. Izumo questioned, "Who is the other teacher?" He nodded in agreement. It's possible that it belongs to the Sannin family. They both found it amusing. After Naruto returned, Kurenai stated that he had no knowledge of the pair's acquaintances. I always pranked them, and when they weren't busy, they would pop in and chat. He smirked. Although not exactly friends, they were willing to give him a chance. They remained quiet for a while, until Jiraiya arrived. Naruto observed Kurenai's eyes and detected his blood boil, which he felt. I'm not often surprised by how beautiful I am. Jiraiya exclaimed, his eyes filled with smug expressions. Naruto smirked in wonder. Jiraiya was surprised to hear him say, "Don't look at my sensei like that. Let's get the action, bro." He departed as soon as he arrived. Kurenai glanced at him and then trailed Jiraiya. Naruto's eyes flicked as he said, "It'll be funny if you do it." He waved both Kotetsu and Izumo before leaving. Naruto is a volatile boy, Kotetsu said, gesturing to him. Izumo nodded in agreement, staring ahead without seeing anything. It's a no-brainer. It's undeniable that he is full of surprises. Following Jiraiya and Kurenai, Naruto arrived at an adequate forest with a river running past it, surrounded by trees. He caught sight of Kurenai and Jiraiya standing silently, with the latter looking away from the prosecution while his arms were crossed. Upon entering his line of sight, Jiraiya smiled at him. "Thanks, Naruto, for catching up on what's been going on. We can now begin our journey." Kurenai's arrival prompted Naruto to calm down and ask for guidance from him. Jiraiya confronted Kurenai, who had not attempted to remove her thoughts and instead allowed her to start. Naruto was slightly apprehensive as it would be the first time he heard Kurenai speak about her opinion of his abilities. Kurenai extended her arms. Genjutsu is the main discipline that Naruto excels in, as stated by Naruto. He has successfully acquired the necessary chakra control to become a professional Genjutsu practitioner. Despite this, Naruto's primary flaw is his tendency to force his illusions on the target instead of implanting a suggestion in their mind and letting the brain do the work for them. It seems to me that his issue stems from the way he performs Genjutsu, which requires him to force the chakra out of his hands rather than letting it flow naturally. Kurenai's expression was one of pure happiness, as he smiled. As I understand, Naruto has already fixed it, so he doesn't think a single issue will arise again when the Chunin exam finals are over. Jiraiya nodded in agreement. What else can I teach my taijutsu opponent? My proficiency in Genjutsu is on par with his, but he expressed an interest in learning some ninjutsu. His hands were swung by Jiraiya. According to Naruto, your chakra affinity is a good indicator of your physical state. It's wind. Using my sensor, I was able to identify it after Kakashi-sensei explained the chakra affinities. It's a remarkable talent, Jiraiya declared. You can use this tool to determine your opponent's level of power and devise the most effective counterpunch for their strategies. Naruto's expression was one of pure happiness. He exclaimed, "Wow, it's so cool," as he gazed at Kurenai, his smile spreading to the face of others. In addition, I discovered that I have a new fondness for water. It's not a rare occurrence. The difficulty in determining one's affinity with conventional methods makes it quite surprising to be able to determine oneself with such accuracy. Kurenai expressed, I am capable of teaching you a water-style technique, just like Naruto. Kurenai nodded and waded into the water. Her hand seals were pierced by a massive surge of water that fell on the river just as she turned around. The wave's aftermath shone brightly through the water droplets, causing her body to shine. It is my inclination, as it turns out. Naruto's jaw dropped and he closed his mouth. Although it wasn't the most impressive water-style jutsu he had ever witnessed, it was the way the technique was presented that made it so remarkable. Jiraiya's expression was one of pure happiness. We appreciate your willingness to share your knowledge with us. Transparency is the key. Kurenai nodded and smirked at Naruto while nodding to Jiraiya. It's not a concern here. Jiraiya remained silent for a brief period. It seems to me that Kurenai will be the only thing I need from you. I appreciate your consideration of my argument. Jiraiya's firing prompted Kurenai to nod back. Naruto scowled and observed her departure. Jiraiya asked, Are you into her? Naruto's face lit up with flames as he frowned. Jiraiya asked, What if I do? Instead, there is nothing. You can train with her if you choose, but there are certain things I must disclose in private, which is why I had her leave me. Naruto's scowl had transformed into a frown. What is your message to me? I'm treating you as a temporary apprentice, and I expect you to adhere to my rules while I train you. Agree with me, Naruto said with a nod. Good news. What kind of training did Kakashi provide you with? Naruto screamed. What's the story behind you? When Kakashi realized we were going to train, he gave you some exercises to work on. He instructed me on chakra manipulation exercises. Naruto retrieved a water balloon. He instructed me to use chakra to make a pop. Jiraiya removed the water balloon from his hands. That's a technique you don't have to learn yet. Naruto's eyebrows widened in an instant. What's the reason behind it? It'll take a long time to learn, but why? It will also prevent you from utilizing other techniques that require less time. It's fine. Jiraiya's suggestion was that the technique would require a considerable amount of time, but he could eventually master it. Jiraiya's expression was one of pure happiness. Good news. Is it possible for you to use the Shadow Clone Jutsu, as Naruto asked with a nod? You are invited to create a batch of copies and perform chakra manipulation exercises on your own. The first method you'll need to execute while they're doing that will be taught to you by me. Naruto's actions were immediately apparent. The use of ninjutsu is different from genjutsu, which you should know. Hand seals are used in each ninjutsu to shape the chakra in a specific way. Disregarding a single hand seal can have catastrophic consequences. Naruto nodded in agreement. Is it necessary to master the sequence of hand seals in this technique before proceeding to shape the elemental chakra? I know it would take months to master your chakra affinity, so here's a quick tip that should suffice. It's important to keep in mind that training for elemental chakra is a temporary and less effective process. Naruto's expression was a smile. Arrangement time, Jiraiya-sensei. After hours of training, Naruto was still panting and groaning from the exhausting fall. The shortcut, as described by Jiraiya, necessitated Naruto to cleanse his chakra of its natural energy state before using it. He tested his chakra reserves while practicing the first technique taught by Jiraiya. Jiraiya's wind style. Technique was unexpected to him, despite his fire and earth affinity, but after explaining the shortcut to himself, it made sense. Nevertheless, he sensed that his proficiency in handling wind chakra and water chakra was increasing to the point where a quick fix could be utilized for using lightning, earth, or fire-style techniques. He jumped onto his feet and exited the clearing. Despite not being actively researching, Jiraiya disappeared shortly after he explained the shortcut and demonstrated it to him. Despite the oddity, Naruto didn't mind as Jiraiya had been an intelligent teacher, teaching him new techniques that he understood. He was most productive when he was taught how to do something and practiced it, which Jiraiya seemed to comprehend. Naruto was contemplating Kurenai's potential relationship with him as he made his way home. His heart sped and his chest felt warm as he contemplated her. He wanted Kurenai to know how he would appreciate her acceptance and began thinking about his approach. It's possible that he could do that because people who were already in a relationship went out on dates. The main issue was his inability to do it in public. He pondered the means of surmounting the difficulty, and it dawned on him. He was aware of the exact place where he would take her. The following day, Naruto left his house and headed straight for Kurenai's place, avoiding detection from the masses by using his sensor and stealth skills. He was aware of the location and had all the necessary preparations. Now it was time to ask for directions. The thought of asking Kurenai was so exciting that he couldn't resist the urge to do just that, and look forward to it more than training. He made his way to Kurenai's apartment and then searched for chakra signatures to confirm that he hadn't been pursued. After finishing, illuminating the situation, I went back to find no one there had seen him come in, knowing that it was not me who had entered their apartment. He waited for Kurenai's arrival when he knocked on his door. Kurenai was observed with a stunning smile on her face as the door opened for him, which took around 10 minutes. "Naruto, can you offer me some assistance today?" Naruto smiled and was about to ask her out, but his last words were buried in his throat. Despite his repeated efforts, he couldn't articulate those words. "How is your day, Kurenai-sensei?" A light appeared on Naruto's nose bridge. "Amazing. Can you provide me with a response?" "Yes, absolutely. A very good point." He looked down as he felt his courage leave him. "Why am I unable to accomplish this task? I've been gaining a lot of knowledge over the years. Jiraiya is a proficient educator." Kurenai's lips clasped tightly. "I'm not imagining you were here to provide me with a training report, aren't you?" Naruto expressed fury at the sudden change in Kurenai's expression. It was strange, being so nervous. It's possible that he was questioning someone who had not rejected him before. "Maybe you should stop snoring. You have the ability to look at me without fear, but you behave like a rat in front of your partner. To what extent is this extremely pitiful? A weakling and a cowardly individual." Naruto smirked. "That's the end of it. Utilize your wrath to express your dissatisfaction." Naruto's fear disappeared as he smiled and acknowledged his confidence. Kurenai asked, "Would you like to go out with me tonight?" After a few seconds, the adorable smile flickered across his face. Undoubtedly, Naruto is the one who embodies that essence. Naruto's eyes lit up with a wide smile. "Excellent. Could I take you to my place?" At 8, Kurenai nodded in response. "What's your plan?" "It'll be unexpected." Kurenai's pupils widened in size. "Okay, so that's it. There's really only one thing. Perhaps it would be more convenient if we could walk to the spot you're using through a transformation. Once we achieve victory, we can discard our transformations." Naruto expressed his joy at the thought of keeping their relationship concealed. "It's fine. I'll be there to greet you at 8. Her expression brought a smile to her face. "I am eagerly anticipating it with excitement." Naruto, with his excitement running wild, approached the village gates at high speed before Naruto turned and rushed towards them. Upon arriving at the gates, he exuded confidence and fist power. The sound of laughter came to his right and he was prepared to give the person a piece of his mind. Upon seeing Jiraiya with a grimace on his face and arms crossed, he began to deflate. Jiraiya chuckled. "Let's get things figured out for the moment." He left for the woods in a state of silence, and Naruto followed suit, his cheeks stained with mist. After reaching the clearing they had used the previous day, Jiraiya turned around and was smiling. Are you sexually stimulated by your lovely sensei last night? Naruto inquired, his eyes wide open. My dear child, I'm eager to give you the skinny on this short story and suggest naming it, Hot for Teacher. Naruto shook his head and looked red in an ecstatic state. What's your opinion? Pervy sage, I didn't have sex. So leave me alone. Jiraiya quipped. If you desire, I would appreciate it if you did. His smile fading away after that. After letting the fun run away, it's time to get back to work. Following another day of training, Naruto went home and prepared himself for his date. He had donned the same black kimono as on his first date. Let's hope things improve this time. Despite his fondness for his outfit, he only grumbled about the fact that it was not underpinning his attire. It was never expected of him to have a girlfriend so soon, but now that he has one, I would probably start working hard and look at some more clothes I can wear. After taking the sealing scroll from his kimono and folding it into its folds, he transformed into a brown-haired teenager with black bangs covering his forehead and dressed in khaki pants and black jacket. In an attempt to test it, he ventured into a local alleyway and then proceeded to Masane's dwelling. She spotted her in a red and green kimono, with her hair bunched up, while senboring. He was seized by Masane, who gave him the charming smile of hers. Greetings, my friend. Seeking entertainment, Naruto shook his head and asked. I'm a bit embarrassed, but I have some plans up for grabs. Before attempting to charm Masane, Naruto left and proceeded to walk on foot. Despite not avoiding her, he knew that Masane was tempting in her own way. He also remembered his relationship with Kurenai during their time together. He observed that nobody had remained so fixed on him as is customary, and some even gave him an acknowledging nod. It caused him to look down as he was reminded of his dislike for using transformations to conceal himself. He didn't want to be falsely accused and understood that it was pointless to try to get it by changing his face or body. It wouldn't alter their perception of him. Eventually, he arrived at Kurenai's residence. He entered the foyer and was about to go up the stairs when he saw a woman with long blonde hair reading from an orange book. Before he turned, the woman had closed the book and put it in her handbag before turning his head towards her. Her character had a familiar quality that was hard to shake off. His suspicions were substantiated when he employed his sensor. Kurenai? She asked, her expression appearing strange on her face. Her green eyes grew brighter than ever. Naruto, I greet you today, as always. She held her arm up high. Ready? Naruto held his date's arm, laughing at their height and leading her to the foot of Hokage Monument. He pulled her towards the monument and proceeded to use the body flicker to reach the viewing platform in a single bound. You never knew you could use the body flicker, Kurenai declared, her voice being distinctly different from her usual drawl that resonated with his ears. I was informed of it only a few days ago. Naruto's expression was a smile. It was a breeze to use, as I only needed one hand seal. Before observing the sunset, Kurenai giggled and gazed at the sky with laughter. Where did you intend to take me? Naruto retorted. We're close to achieving our goal, but it's not quite there yet. Kurenai glared at him and appeared to appreciate his gaze, but then abandoned her transformation. While listening to Kurenai's expression, Naruto gasped and observed his pupils dilate. She had dressed in a knee-length black dress that supported her figure without holding onto it and was wearing comfortable black heels. Her ruby earrings were beautifully accentuated by a silver necklace that had rubies around her neck. Kurenai smiled and asked, Are you enjoying it? Naruto regained his composure by blinking. To recover his position. You're a stunning individual, even to the outside of your impressive body. The village was illuminated by a pinkish hue that transformed into sour purple, and they took advantage of the moment to relish the view. While Kurenai was staring at the sunset, Naruto placed his arm around her waist. Are you prepared? She nodded and Naruto used the body flicker again, appearing on top of the Hokage monument. The village's lights had erupted, creating a pleasing contrast with the bright stars that shone through the night sky. Kurenai expressed his admiration by exclaiming, "What a wonderful sight!" Naruto's expression was one of pure happiness, as he smiled. "Are you aware that I have a great passion for this place?" The scroll was uncut and laid on the ground before being unsealed by him. When the wind gently blew through, smoke washed away, leaving behind a blanket and an equally sizable basket with spooky smell. After guiding Kurenai to a prepared seat, he proceeded to place her beside the small table. He reached into the basket and retrieved a plate filled with steaming skewered meat and container of steamed rice. Naruto suggested that Kurenai eat, and she took a bite out of the skewer while he prepared his own dish. Kurenai started savoring the meal as dinner began in earnest. Naruto observed her savor the food he had labored on. He couldn't believe how she managed to eat it all without any mess, chewed it well and swallowed it with a little FOMO. She smiled at the sight. She splayed her eyes. "I was under the impression that I looked not so good after eating." With a burst of happiness, Naruto's eyes shone as he smiled. "Kurenai, you always look great." Kurenai's cheeks were noticeably pink, which was unexpected. "I'd like to hear your thoughts on the food, please. It's delicious and has a distinct flavor. Are you able to make it?" Naruto nodded. Besides ramen, Yoshino taught him how to cook other foods with great care. "Naruto, that's something to be proud of." With Naruto's grin on his lips, they continued to eat and thoroughly enjoy the small meal. His discovery was that any conversation he attempted to start over would have ended up in the wrong form, as it had to do with his career and not his personal life. At the end of their meal, Naruto went back to his girlfriend for further information. "The words I have been referring to are Erwin and you. Can you tell me what your preferred color is?" "Despite my growing fondness for yellow and orange, crimson remains unaffected." Naruto's blushing was evident, as she had a good idea why she liked the colors. "I'm curious, what color do you prefer, orange?" Naruto nodded and asked if that is accurate. "What's your date of birth, June 11th? Is October the same for you?" Naruto nodded and later remembered Kurenai's behavior in the morning after seeing her smile. "What brought you happiness this morning?" "I am content to be alive and spending time with my students, friends, and boyfriend." She winked at him and made his cheeks flush with crimson. Naruto looked away and while doing so, he observed that they had all finished their meal. "I'm ecstatic to hear that you're happy." A cake he had made for dessert and a knife were both taken out by him. "You're looking for some?" Kurenai glared at him with a disapproving look. "What is the explanation for this statement?" "Okay, but it's only a small part." Naruto's expression was one of frowning. "If you didn't like it, I wouldn't have made it." Kurenai placed her hand over his head. "According to Naruto, it's fine. I acknowledge the purpose, despite it. Honestly, I am." A playful grin was seen on Naruto's lips as he played. "Alright, I'm not against that, but I want to give you cake. You've been asking since the beginning." He then placed a piece of cake the size of his pinky finger on Kurenai's plate. After cutting a much bigger cake for himself, he couldn't stop laughing at Kurenai's surprise onlooker. He was about to enter the room when he saw the cake spill onto his face, with frosting covering his forehead. He wiped his face and looked at Kurenai, who had a wide smile on her face as she nibbled on more appropriate-sized cake. Upon returning to his cake, he realized that his plate had been missing, which was unexpected. He observed Kurenai finish his cake and evidently ingested it. With a napkin in her mouth, she gave him smirks and kisses before giving him another unsettling look. "Nobody pranks me." Naruto then ran up to Kurenai and tackled him. As they tussled to gain an advantage, he exclaimed, "You should have thought twice before trying to outsmart the village's top jokester. I'm not willing to let my boyfriend indulge in a quick kiss with me." Naruto attempted to fend Kurenai off his flesh, but she had a firm grasp on him and was penetrating him. After that, she bent down and slathered Naruto's cheek with her finger, picking up the leftover frosting and glide over his whiskers. Naruto's body trembled and his eyes glazed over. "Are we sensitive?" she questioned. Naruto nodded inanely and felt Kurenai's breasts pressing against his chest. "Spandered a gap," she stated before wiping the remaining frosting that was on his lips with her thumb. The object stayed there for a second, and he kissed her thumb while wiping off the frosting. She dangled her thumb away and then put her finger in front of his mouth. He swung it around, but she picked it up. He trembled, and she smiled at his mouth once more, letting her finger slip. He let go of the shot when she became distracted, but then she seized his hand and held it up to his chest. With gleaming eyes, Kurenai inquired, "Are you finished eating?" Naruto's words were, "I can't get enough," with his chest pumping both ways. He was within her grasp and she knew it. Kurenai lowered himself and gave him a kiss on the nose. "I'll have to be mindful of that." She rose to her feet and provided him with a spot. After grabbing his weapon, Naruto placed his scroll inside his hand and concealed it in his kimono. "Is it acceptable to refer to the night? I have a training session in the morning." Kurenai's expression was one of pure happiness, as he smiled. "It's fine. It was a fantastic time for me." After she picked up her handbag, Naruto inserted it into Naruto's hand and they made their way to the foot of the monument. After resuming their transformations, they strolled to Kurenai's dwelling. Kurenai said, "Good night, Naruto," after they arrived there. Naruto's expression was one of pure happiness, as he smiled. "Good night, friends." Naruto was pleased with the success of the date he had attended. He was aware that the situation would only improve if it didn't already exist. 2 weeks had passed since Naruto's date, and he had already put in a lot of effort to train with Jiraiya and Kurenai. With the aid of Jiraiya, he was able to master 2 wind-style techniques and make moderate progress with his chakra manipulation exercises. He could raise a water column to erect it 1 meter and cut most of the leaf, although leaving the tips jagged. The nine-tailed fox was taught how to control its chakra by Jiraiya, who had also taken the time to do so. Jiraiya was taken aback by Naruto's ability to regulate the chakra effectively. With practice, Naruto learned to create a one-tailed chakra cloak that allowed him to control his movements while using it. During this time, Kurenai had ensured that his Genjutsu was up to par, aiding him in refining it to use as she desired. Another date was had by them, where they both went to watch a movie at Kurenai's apartment. They both had a good time, but it wasn't very enjoyable. While clearing his training, Naruto was putting the finishing touches to the second wind-style technique he had learned. Jiraiya said, "Absolute, Naruto, what are you up to?" Naruto examined the hand seals of the technique. The chakra's shape and its interaction with the surrounding environment were regulated by the hand seals. Jiraiya had recommended that he imagine the precise outcome of his technique, which had greatly assisted him in this endeavor. Naruto let out a strong breeze that separated the river and caused water ripples to rise as he ended the hand seal combination. Jiraiya said, uncrossing his arms, "It's not bad. You need to work on your technique before your match, and you should be able to do it with some effort." "Excellent." Jiraiya was looked at by Naruto, who anticipated his departure. "Is it not your intention for you to go and conduct some research?" Jiraiya muttered. "No, really. Since I started training you, I haven't been doing any research on you." Naruto's astonishment was evident as he gawked. Jiraiya nodded in response to the question, "All right, right? Incredible. Blame your sensei for that. Her disapproval of my books and her perspective on them made me wonder if Ika Ikaza Paradise would still be accessible to her without acknowledging its awesomeness. As a reciprocal gesture, I had to discontinue my research. I wouldn't research her next 3 visits if she didn't really like it." Jiraiya's expression changed to, "and," with a glimmer of happiness. I won the bet, he said. Naruto nodded in response to his curiosity about the outcome. It's a good question to ask. Jiraiya, with his novel in hand, was discovered by Kurenai on the roof of the Hokage's office. I thought this book was quite good. It was my opinion that converting it into a collection of short stories would be beneficial. The tale of the homeless man who could transform into a toad and the slug girl he loved above all else was enjoyable to me. Jiraiya expressed a smile. Thanks, dear, that you did. Despite the fact that my books are often labeled as low-quality pornographic material, I always encourage others, particularly women, to read them. It's probable that they'll come across something they enjoy. Kurenai's expression was one of smile. I am cognizant of this statement. The two of us have a tendency to indulge in certain activities, but her eyes became smaller. Even after a long time, I still don't want you to peek on me while I'm bathing. Without addressing someone of yours, the perverts in the village are already worrying me. Ensure that I maintain proper hygiene while showering. Don't worry, there's no need to worry. If Naruto were to see or hear me do something similar with you, he would probably give me a good look. He chuckled. He is a good kid and I can see why you like him. Kurenai's expression broadened to include a smile that was slightly larger. I acknowledge that. Make an effort to remember the message I conveyed. Jiraiya's smile that had protruded as he remembered his bet and later conversed with Kurenai had vanished. I have something to say to you, Naruto, about the 2 weeks we've been practicing for. Despite his initial disbelief, Naruto was still moved by Jiraiya's words when he found out that his girlfriend had read and enjoyed something utterly garbage. Is it a fresh approach? Sort of things. Jiraiya's face caught him off guard. There is a catch to this approach. He slammed his hand on the ground by biting his thumb and passing through a series of hand seals. A kanji and a circular seal were visible to Naruto, but they were blocked by smoke that caused him to lose vision. After the smoke cleared, he observed an orange toad with a brown necklace and blue markings across its body sitting in front of him. A large scroll was revealed by the tongue, which Jiraiya seized and unfolded in front of him. Blood scribbled names. Blood was the name of Jiraiya, and the name of Minato Namikaze, 4th Hokage. By signing this scroll, you can summon toads. You're my permanent apprentice. Your removal from your team and joining me in training is imminent. Jiraiya's scroll left Naruto feeling mesmerized as he looked at it. Summoners were a rare breed of ninja and summoning animals only served to increase their master's might. Jiraiya nodded and said, You never said I won't be in a team. I have already conversed with Kurenai and Kakashi about it and they both concur that it would be beneficial for you. It's your call to make a decision. If you comply, you'll be my mentee until I believe you have mastery over everything I can teach you. Kurenai is still required to teach you Genjutsu, but Kakashi expressed his desire to instruct you on some subjects. Although Naruto was unsure about Kakashi's potential to impart knowledge that Jiraiya couldn't, he admitted to feeling proud of him. Missions are still a possibility, but they will be few and far between. According to Naruto, he did not perceive any genuine downsides. The teacher Jiraiya had trained to perfection had made significant progress in a short period of time, and he had rapidly improved. Despite being told by Jiraiya that Kakashi would still train him, he decided to leave his team and instead stayed with Sasuke and Sakura. Without taking the Chunin exams, it would have been one of the most uncomplicated decisions he could have made. He was hesitant for a few seconds due to the fact that he had done it. They both acknowledged that he was a Jinchuriki during the exams, and based on his experience, they developed an almost friendship-like relationship. Refusing to befriend them would mean turning down the chance for friendship. He disregarded the idea shortly after. He was aware that it would be unwise to allow a friendship that could have been the reason for him not becoming the Toad Sage's apprentice. I'll take care of it. With a smile on his face, Jiraiya allowed him to sign the scroll in blood. After completing the task, the orange toad took hold of the scroll and vanished into the night. Good news. Kindly use these hand seals by biting your thumb. He demonstrated the hand seal combination to the summoning jutsu in the sequence, Boar Dog Bird Monkey Ram. Afterward, place your hand on the ground and slam it down. Are you supposed to use more chakra than normal initially, Naruto? I thought it was okay, and he said no while examining the hand seals. Appel your hand. Jutsu slammed his palm and summoned this little toad wearing a blue vest and an orange-red body. The toad greeted with a hand that had been webbed in its wake. Naruto's expression of delight was yo as he looked at Jiraiya. He was happy he could use the method. He was anticipating a rise in his performance. Jiraiya's sole expression was a smile. The toad's attention was redirected to him, who then inquired, "Do you happen to be a new summoner?" The fox chuckled and asked, "Are you capable of doing that?" "Keep quiet." "Good to see you, Gamakichi," he exclaimed softly and gave the toad a hug. "My name is Naruto." Naruto was given more space as Jiraiya jumped backwards. "This time, you can utilize more chakras." Gamakichi seized the chance to jump onto Naruto's head after witnessing him make another attempt. This time, he utilized a greater amount of chakra. Warning, Jutsu. One moment he was on the floor, and the next immobilized in front of an enormous red toad's head, with a large tant hanging from its hip and wearing blue vest. Smoke billowed from the toad's pipe as it strode away. The toad spotted Jiraiya and asked him why, exclaiming, "What's the matter here? Who brought me before you?" "I never asked you, Gamabunta." "Did the child lying on your head do anything?" Naruto's expression was, "I don't believe you." The toad's identity as the one that fought alongside the fourth Hokage against the nine-tailed fox was inconsequential. He wouldn't let fear overwhelm him and hide from anyone. "You're my call, I'm the one who called you up," she said. "If you don't believe me, I'll prove that I am worthy of being your summoner no matter what." Gamakichi chuckled from his spot on Naruto's head. "Naruto, thank you for your kind words. It's undeniable that you have a strong will." Gamabunta said, "What are you up to?" Gamabunta retorted, "Just in case he called me before calling you." "Are you joking? What is your name, boy?" "I am known as Gamabunta, the Toad Chief." He paused for a moment. "Naruto Uzumaki, you're a fascinating person. You have become the third individual to call me, which is a remarkable accomplishment. You said you want to prove yourself. What do you mean? You know what I have to do, if I am summoner? I can assure you that you have already started to do so." Gamakichi offered to leave the toad's latest summoner with a smile. "Good morning, Naruto, I hope you can join me for treats later, please." "Alright. Let's see you later, Gamakichi and Chief Toad." Upon returning home, Naruto exerted himself to drop a substantial amount of weight and managed to reach the closest tree with his clinging technique. He detected that Jiraiya had gone missing again by using his sensor. He anticipated that he would have to anticipate from his new master. Naruto was eager to gain more knowledge and demonstrate his abilities when the Chunin exams were held. In the Hidden Leafs arena, Naruto and the other competitors were positioned in the middle to hear Genma speak to an audience that included civilians, shinobi, visiting nobles and dignitaries, and members of the Kage tribute corps. The nobles were potential clients, and Naruto knew that impressing them would bring him prestige and a positive reputation, which would lead to bigger and better things for his village in the future. "Alright, everyone except Niji Hyuga and Yujito Ni goes to the stands," Genma said. "You'll find a spot where you can observe the battles." Naruto observed as he looked around, the other players were seen moving away from the vast expanse of ground. Sasuke was supposed to be competing, but he wasn't. Sasuke's preference was to challenge himself, and he believed that confronting Gaara would be the most advantageous option, even though it could pose significant risks. After Naruto and the others left, Niji and Yujito made arrangements to engage in combat. Genma's posture was tense, as he was aware of the potential for an unfinished battle to occur. "Let the first game start," Niji cried out after activating the Byakugan. "You're not going to win today, though. Raikage is the fool that you consider to be, and it's your call to failure." Yujito's expression was one of pure happiness, with a soul smile on his face. "I don't believe in destiny." She charged and fist-blasted Niji's jaw. After hitting Yujito with her hand, Niji proceeded to strike her with his thumb, causing her hands to turn bright blue. Yujito ducked her shoulder to avoid the strike, but Niji's backhand made contact and delivered a palm strike to her lead shoulder. Yujito acted quickly and hit the backside for a roundhouse kick, while Niji avoided it by sweeping his arm under her leg and driving his hand forward to strike him on the opposite side. After regaining her balance, she bent over 90 degrees and then executed a modified backflip that resulted in her landing on her feet. Despite her lack of strength, Niji swiftly moved towards Yujito's body, his hands racing rapidly as he tried to incapacitate her. By wiping Niji's away with both hands, Yujito was able to keep going as she looked for an opening. She was unable to find any. Niji had put in an extraordinary amount of effort and training to ensure he emerged victorious in the fight. He made it effective in putting Yujito on the defensive. Yujito's first attempt was unsuccessful as he missed it, giving him the opportunity to push a hand filled with chakra into her stomach. A smirk from Niji was noticed on his face. "You didn't have a realistic expectation of what would happen." Yujito's grin was sharply focused on the lips, blood streaming down her cheek. "You don't disappoint me, you're not that bad." Niji's aim was to grab her throat, but Yujito hesitated and jumped away. Blood was spilt by her. "Stay grounded on your beliefs and values." Prior to returning to the fight, she was enveloped in a blue fire that resembled the cat's paws and wrapped around both hands. Niji didn't go with the killing this time, testing Yujito's technique and waiting for the right moment to strike. He overlooked the burning sensation on his forearm as he flung Yujito's paw away, jumping backwards to prevent his chest from being cut and burned. While Yujito continued to exert pressure, she struck Niji with sharp strikes on his thighs and forearms. She made a daring attempt to strike with one paw before flipping and cutting inward. As she was about to join her, Niji spun like a ball, pouring chakra from each of his chakra points into a dome that sent Yujito flying. She landed in a crash, immediately lifting upwards and then crouching. Niji held his hand up, ready to attack suddenly. "I would have advised you to avoid a painful and expensive embarrassment for yourself and your community by surrendering. Nonetheless, the prospect is too good to miss. Your efforts to harvest the Byakugan will be futile as I only need to defeat your weak competitor." Yujito's laughter was palpable. "The Byakugan is not the reason we're here. I am not familiar with Lord Raikage, but if I were to become his daughter, I would have dismissed it as an unimportant aspect. Rather than risking another enemy, it would be wise to form an alliance with the Leaf Village." "Is that accurate?" Niji's eyebrow furrowed slightly. "I doubt I could spot that conceited moron trying to turn his life around." Yujito expressed his frustration, saying, "I'm tired of hearing about fate. The only outcome is the outcome that results from your actions." Niji scowled. "You lack comprehension." Niji persisted in his pursuit of the fight and aimed to conclude it as soon as possible. He steered away from Yujito's paw prints and struck her on the tenketsu, blocking her chakra flow. Despite the increasing difficulty of connecting her chakra to her limbs, Yujito persisted in fighting and kept fighting. Yujito's high kick was followed by Niji, who then sealed the chakra points around her knee and imprisoned the entire leg. "You are within my range," he said. The yin-yang symbol of the 8 trigrams, which had green highlights and 2 growing green circles, was visible below. The chakra points of Yujito were sealed by Niji's hands, which equated to 64 palms. Niji stepped forward and hit Yujito as hard as possible, scoring 64 goals. After being launched into the air, she thuds hard and failed to rise from the ground. As he approached Yujito, Niji stated that, people's destiny is determined from the moment they are born. The purpose of certain individuals is to exercise authority, while others are to serve as a means of serving. Due to his destiny, my father was made to take the place of his twin after he was born just a few seconds after him. A seal was imposed on him, which led to his imposition and confinement to the main branch of our clan. If my cousin had not been kidnapped by the Cloud Village, it wouldn't have been necessary to sacrifice my father. She is a failure of Shinobi, but she's not to blame. Due to his inability to handle defeat, my father was killed by your Hokage. It was fate, that's why we had to meet in this situation. I will take your life at my hands. He placed his hand on Yujito's heart and touched it. Yujito's body was engulfed by the red chakra, and he felt his wrist snapping shortly after jumping up. Are you also associated with that seal? Yujito inquired, his eyes slitting like a cat's. Niji's jawline was loose and he couldn't move his head. Yujito reacted by growling in pain and acknowledging the pain. Your chakra was sealed, so it's not safe to move or fight with such force. If you were me, I would have become a Jinchuriki. Yujito went on, idiot, stupid. If you have a burden, don't allow it to ruin or rule your life. With all her might, she punched Niji's stomach, causing the bone to crack and necessitating his coughing out blood. She held on to Niji's wrist and punched him in the face, causing his jaw to break as he was sent flying towards the arena wall. Yujito seized him with an arm created by the same caustic chakra she held and brought him back to her. When she was about to force him onto the ground, Niji stabbed her with his good hand and then pulled out of her grip. Upon landing, Niji spun the ball on the spot and utilized the 8 trigrams, heavenly rotation to gain some distance. With his teeth firmly planted, he moved away from the agony spreading throughout his body. Genma was about to call the match, but Niji remained silent and looked towards him. Despite his broken jaw, he spoke the words, "I'm still fighting," with difficulty. Breathing was painful, but he couldn't escape. He had to prove to the Hokage that his destiny was predetermined before he could do so. Just before she hit the ground, Yujito had regained consciousness and activated her tailed beast's chakra, changing it into blue. If I had recognized that someone who was not my friend and would have hated me, I would never have been able to earn the respect and acknowledgement of my village, and I probably would have died a long time ago. Hokage, the leader of our village, is the one who aided me in accomplishing this. She resisted Niji's assault and pierced his hand. She let go of his hand and used her own elongated nails to cut his chest, slapping him to the ground with blood. You can't use your gentle fist without the other hands. Can you be a ninja without the use of your hands? It seems like fate has taken spies away from you. She was about to rescue him from his despair, but Genma obstructed her path. Genma said to her, "You are the winner." Yujito pressed her tailed beast's chakra and proceeded to the stands, watching Niji on a stretcher as she watched. In most cases, she wouldn't have gone that far. He was just a kid, burdened with hatred and fatalistic attitude. The Hokage, who aided in her transformation into a revered kunoichi, was the reason she avoided falling into darkness and torment. She knew she would have been Niji, if not for him. The Hokage, wearing a yellow and white Raikas hat, robe, dark gray pants, and gold-belted waistcoat, was observed sitting in his chair at the Kage's stand. His arms were embellished with golden bracelets and his chest was adorned with sharp jewels. While Niji and Yujito were engaged in a fight, the Hokage asked what it meant when he said that an A-ranked Chunin was supposed to take the Chunin exams. He was confident that Yujito would win the exams, which would give his village a more elevated status. As the battle progressed, he became anxious when Niji gained control. The Hokage stated that the boy was a rare talent. It goes without saying that he is not even a member of the Hyuga clan's main branch, but can use its ultimate methods. The Hokage was in agreement with his statement. Yujito's age being the one she looked like would have resulted in her death, according to him. His frustration was triggered by the words spoken by Niji, who brought to mind his initial failure in winning the Byakugan. After many years of pondering, it was clear to him that he had made an error in judgment by asking for the leader of the Hokage clan. Attempting to harvest the Byakugan was unsuccessful. He held his face tightly with a headache that hit his forehead, recalling the day before and feeling regret for having failed. The sight of Niji knocking Yujito to the ground caused him to have a more severe headache. According to his understanding of the Hokage, they could partially block chakra. He smeared her with his fingers all over the place. "Miss you, boss?" Darui asked his right-hand man. "Of course," he declared. The boy will receive what he or she is receiving. In addition to reliving his most embarrassing failure, Niji also insulted him. His father's actions were the reason for his hatred towards him, but it wasn't invincible to hear. An egotistical brat. Yujito rose from his position and shattered Niji. She had not yet achieved mastery over the Two-Tails monster cat, leading to her surrendering to the Two-Tailers' enmity in moments of intense fury. She regained control before the end. He was aware that she demonstrated kindness when she killed him without using her tailed beast taijutsu, even though it was barely noticeable. Yujito's victory was met with disapproval from the Hokage, who stated that it was shameful. The loss of his father and his hatred for the Cloud Village had a significant impact on Niji, who was also consumed by grief. He couldn't move on from it and it resulted in this outcome. The Raikage refrained from making any statements. He was aware that he made Niji's life more difficult, but it was a reality. Holding on to grudges was a way to help fools who couldn't accept their loss and move on from it. Yujito was observed by him. From his perspective, she was doing a good job. Niji was ruthless, unyielding and had the ability to make amends. He was prone to the belief that fate held no greater significance than his own existence, which was his most significant flaw. There was no such thing in the ninja world. While watching the match between Niji and Yujito, Naruto was taken aback by both players' impressive displays of skill. He genuinely believed that Niji would emerge victorious as the match continued, particularly after sealing off Yujito's chakra. However, Yujito resisted the attacks of Niji and vanquished him. He perceived Yujito's presence on the couch, sitting beside Omoi and observing. He thought she was taller than he had ever imagined, more grown-up than child. "Yujito, did that come across as a little too much?" Omoi asked her. "Despite the fact that he was tough and determined to kill us, you managed to save him by breaking his leg. Hokage clan, they might ask for your head to make up for the humiliation." Naruto was studied by Yujito before she turned her gaze to Omoi. "It could have been, I thought it was. In the event of his recuperation, I believe he will be fine." Naruto's gaze remained still. He noticed Gaara staring at Yujito, feeling a menacing presence from him even though his face was as smooth as sand. He didn't want to think about what might happen if he were to fight any Jinchuriki. "Are you confident in your ability to defeat Lee?" he inquired, gesturing towards Shikamaru. Shikamaru leaned towards the railing and answered, "I don't know. Whether you win or lose, it'll be a difficult decision to make." Naruto's expression was one of pure happiness as he smiled at him. "You're aware that you have the potential to achieve 100 plans." Shikamaru's expression was one of dismissal, shrugging off his worries. Genma stated that Shikamaru Nara and Rock Lee would be their next opponent. "Good luck," Naruto said. "Remove M from existence." With a beaming smile, Shikamaru headed towards the arena. With a solemn expression, Lee looked away from Yujito and leapt over the railing. Genma remarked that Shikamaru and Lee had arrived at the arena, just a reminder. "The match comes to an abrupt end when I tell the player to stop." Shikamaru and Lee put their finger on each other's napkin. "Let's kick off the second fight." Lee proceeded to perform a solo act. "You are my enemy and I cannot afford to lose you. I am compelled to seek revenge for the defeat of my teammate. Shikamaru became more lenient. Just saying, and I won't take any action. He steered clear of Lee's initial blow, trying to create some distance. His knowledge of Lee's strength, speed, and taijutsu abilities made it necessary for him to trap him quickly. Lee was not granting him any chance to succeed. With his punches and kicks, he hit the nail on the head and almost got knocked out. Lee had been trained to increase his speed and agility, but still managed to make him appear motionless when he fell down. Shikamaru jumped over Lee's leg sweep and then moved away. The deep frown that Lee had was noticeable as he held back his weight. With glee, Shikamaru's eyes met his partner as they held their hands in the rat seal, effectively catching Lee before he could lift his weights. He was utilizing a form of shadow possession where, as long as his shadow was linked to Lee's pose, he could move without Lee recognizing his approach. "How long can you hold the weights?" he asked, strapped an explosive tag to his kunai and its aftermath. "If you can go the distance, I'll throw this at you." Lee's arms were under increasing pressure, causing him to sweat. "I will not yield. Open." Shikamaru began to experience discomfort. He kept the kunai in his hands and tried as hard as possible to keep the technique intact. Lee released the weights individually, and as they did, they fell, shattering the ground and reverberating dust. Shikamaru was also experiencing perspiration. He flung the kunai towards Lee, which caused a concussion upon hitting it rather than an incendiary or fragmentary one after activating the tag. Even though Lee sustained injuries, he was still conscious. The second gate, the Gate of Goodwill. The second gate was opened by Lee, causing Shikamaru to break free from his grip. He was kicked into the air by Lee, who accelerated in front of him. A log fell to the ground, while Shikamaru was just a few meters away from Lee. "I'll give you up," Shikamaru declared to Professor. Lee's speed and strength were too much for him to match, as the gates had been open. The replacement technique proved to be a stroke of luck for him. "I am extremely fortunate to have had such a good life." Lee slouched down, his hands on his knees, and bent over after exertion. Genma's expression was one of pure happiness. Rock Lee prevails. The crowd's cheers were louder than during the intense fight between Niji and Yujito, where most of the crowd was taken aback by the intensity of their performance. With a handshake, Shikamaru said, "Won't be easy on you, Lee." With a smile on her face, Lee took it upon herself. "It's my preference to say that." They all made their way back to the stands together. After the final match between Shikamaru and Lee, Darui stated that he was fond of the child's thoughts. With a smile on his face, the Hokage applauded. Shikamaru's ability to maintain a calm disposition and assess situations with relative ease can make him an excellent leader, provided he can adapt to his changes. The Raikage snorted deeply. He would have been a reliable backup figure in times of trouble, provided he didn't withdraw from the situation. The sight of the 8 gates in action was eagerly anticipated by me. The next round of competition will see Lord Raikage as the opponent, as confirmed by his other bodyguard C. The 8 gates should be seen again as he prepares to face Yujito in the upcoming battle. Jiraiya defended the Hokage by stating that it's better to retreat and regroup instead of fighting for a lost battle. The Raikage's sole nod was observed as he looked back at the arena. Genma stated that it was time to start the third game. "I desire Sasuke, Uchiha and Gaara to come to the arena for us to initiate our journey." The crowd erupted in cheers as Gaara entered the arena with sand swirling around him, eagerly anticipating the last Uchiha fight. Even though a few minutes had passed, Sasuke was not visible. A voice was heard. In the ears of Raid Namishi, the Hokage's other bodyguard, who had brown spiky hair and a scar on his left side of his face. "It seems like Sasuke is nowhere to be found in the village." Lord Hokage asked Sasuke if he could give him more time. He had not spoken during the exams. His green and white Kazekage hat, along with the veil that covered his face, allowed him to see his eyes. A large number of the visiting nobles and dignitaries came to witness the final Uchiha in action. To deny him the chance to compete would be a terrible insult. He's not expected to turn up on time, which means he can't be trusted to lead teams, Darui stated. The Raikage's expression was one that indicated he didn't like his own face. It's accurate to say that the brat should be expelled. Learning that the world doesn't revolve around him will be a valuable lesson for him. Jiraiya had witnessed Sasuke's intense training and eagerness to engage in battle. He had a reasonable expectation that he wasn't late on himself, even though it was not from his own initiative. The Kazekage has a valid point. The Hokage showed a frown. Sasuke is compelled to accept the consequences of his actions, which is unfortunate. His tardiness does not qualify as a compliment. The Kazekage suggested that the winner of the tournament be pitted against him. It's a good idea, don't you think? He won't be promoted, but the visiting dignitaries will be content. After a while, the Raikage's expression faded away, but he was reluctant to accept the Kazekage's suggestion. Following the recommendation of raid by Genma, the Kazekage smirked beneath his mask. After Genma informed him and the others about Sasuke's fate, the sand surrounding Gaara began to rotate more quickly. Genma said, "Omoi, you have the chance to fight Gaara because you're not fighting yet as there is no scheduled fight right now." The Raikage caused a stir among the crowd. Despite his pessimistic outlook, Omoi was a formidable warrior. He demonstrated his worth by putting aside his worries and engaging in combat with Gaara. He managed to slash through the Jinchuriki's mud with his katana, but failed to incapacitate him. Omoi stepped over the edge of a sand pillar, channeled lightning chakra through his katana, and began to run. Omoi was caught by Gaara's sand, but he managed to break free from it by holding onto a log and reappearing behind him, carrying his katana to separate his head from his shoulders. Omoi had to flee from the sand that formed around Gaara to prevent it from turning into a fine paste. After cutting through the sand as it approached, he entered Gaara's inner guard and presented an overhead swing of his katana that cut through Gaara. Gaara appeared unharmed as he lay on the katana, with sand film wrapping around his body and moving slowly towards Omoi's hands. Gaara's shoulder was engulfed by a thin strip of sand that partially covered the katana. "I'm saved from your cruel attacks," Omoi yelled, relinquishing his katana and backing away from Gaara. The Raikage clasped his fist tightly. He expressed his belief that it was incredibly bothersome. He could see why Omoi chose to quit, as he exerted himself to penetrate the Jinchuriki's defense and Gaara managed to catch him only after his efforts. Gaara has been announced by Genma as the winner. Omoi went back to the stands. Gaara screamed in distress and held a hand over his head, muttering something under his breath. Yujito was believed by the Raikage to be capable of carrying him, as per his observations. He chuckled, acknowledging that things were finally coming his way. Gaara's desire to kill disappeared for Naruto when Omoi surrendered. He had armor made of sand that was designed to shield him, even if he could get past Gaara's initial defense. It was going to be a tough battle for Gaara, but he had to find something to break through. Shino Aburame and Kankura are set to face off in their next fight, Genma said. Naruto employed his sensor to scrutinize Shino with a glance. Since the tournament's inception, his fellow student had not taken a moment to stop looking at him. It was bothersome. The reason he knew was due to his decisive victory over Hinata, but it was between him and her. If Shino wished to grieve the loss of his teammate who refused to participate in the fight, it was his decision. Before facing Genma, Kankura glanced at Temari, who was standing beside him. Genma said, "I gave up." "Alright, so be it. I am hoping that Naruto Uzumaki and Temari will come down here to start the next match." Temari sped down to the arena on her fan. Prior to using the body flicker, Naruto took advantage of a chance to view the vast, dusty battlefield, which featured only one tree and surrounded by long grass on the field's edge. The time had come for him to shine. Genma said, "I think somebody is very motivated." Leave the game in," Naruto remarked, reflecting on his knowledge of Temari. Despite her proficiency in wind-style ninjutsu, she was unyielding and utilized her severe beating of Tenten as proof of her skills. He scowled at her for going too far during the fight, beating someone who was already down and humiliating her. Maybe it was the reason why Shino wanted to confront him, given that he carried out the same actions as him. Temari asked, "What's the problem?" while holding her fan out in front of her. "If your thoughts are not in alignment, you should consider quitting like my foolish sibling." Naruto's focus was on himself. He had to maintain his attention. He fired a lunge punch into Temari's face, then withheld his outstretched arm while she swings her fan to the side and sweeps it with precision. Temari's grin broadened as she sniffed. "Do you think taijutsu will prove to be a losing strategy?" Naruto spit in the fog as the true Naruto rose from the depths of night. The rules didn't prohibit Naruto from dragging a genjutsu into the area just before the start, so he took advantage of it. The wind that Temari blew from her fan flared out and then ricocheted beneath it, shattering the ground and picking up dust. Naruto focused and walked through the hand symbols. The wind style was remarkable. A strong gust of wind greeted Temari's attack, and he used the dust cloud to prepare a genjutsu, jib, with greater precision. The genjutsu was created to make its target endure their worst fears. According to Kurenai, if the aim is to manipulate the target's emotions and memories, they will become self-destructive. When the dust settled, Temari was left with a cold head and eyes that protruded from their sockets. "Gaara, please stay away, leave me alone, don't kill me," she exclaimed loudly before retreating into herself. Her fan screamed to the ground, unnoticed. Naruto went before her. Recently, Tenten had been spotted by him several times during the month-long exam preparation and was described as someone who wanted to become a legendary kunoichi figure. "What emotions did you experience when you were humiliated and your worst nightmare came true?" Temari's violent beating caused her to feel hurt as she tried to cover up the mistake. Tenten was regarded by him as a friend. He had to convince the spectators that he was far more intimidating and hazardous than what actually happened. A monument is erected to pay tribute to the shinobi who lost their lives in combat. The Hokage equated these matches to warfare, and therefore, harming Tenten was tantamount to an attack on someone you had just killed. She was insulted and degraded by you in the most severe way possible. Temari's screams persisted, but he recognized that she was paying attention. You may be able to reconstruct the atmosphere of Tenten's writing. By using a chop to her throat, he relieved her of her fear and terror by dispelling the genjutsu. Allowing her to start was a smart move as her fan's casual swing almost overwhelmed his own wind-style technique, which made him realize that he had put more power into the fight than she did. Although his speech was overly impressive, he still had to produce an extraordinary image. He couldn't rely on anyone to take him seriously any longer. Naruto Uzumaki is the winner, as Genma smiled. Naruto reacted with a smile to the compliments. His smile widened as he heard the crowd cheer him on after his victory. Through his sensor, he observed Kankuro taking Temari and exiting in a cloud of smoke. The competitors will be granted a break to rest and recover before the next round commences. The Raikage was eager to witness the Blade of Illusion in action as Naruto Uzumaki approached him, so he leaned forward. That's why he brought his ninja with him to the Leaf. A new alliance was just a bonus to create. The Hokage posed the question, "Do you have any interest in Naruto?" The Raikage observed Naruto's rapid ascent in the air, facing retaliation for his underestimation of his opponent. Naruto's ability to defeat a Hyuga in taijutsu made him feel aggravating, as he was aware of the consequences. Until Naruto turned the tables on him by playing his hand at one of his opponents. "The first time I heard about Naruto, it was from a trusted source," he replied. "He was the one who included Naruto's name in our bingo book." He observed that Naruto utilized his own wind to fend off the wind, which caused a cloud of dust to form around the two figures. After the dust had settled, the girl was muttering about Gaara and then screaming. What is your take on C? C, a Genjutsu expert, stated that Naruto had placed Zeto, style of Japanese boxing, over the arena before the start of the match and used it to take charge of his fight. The Genjutsu he employed just recently is designed to counteract the target's fears. The Sand Village's Jinchuriki, Gaara, was a fearless and unprincipled murderer. The Sand Kunoichi's fear was used in an unprincipled manner. He acquiesced. It seems my source's skills haven't changed at all. While Naruto was giving a speech, the Hokage and Jiraiya were both in hysterics, leading the Raikage to take notice. The Raikage caught his face just before Naruto and knocked him out, and for a second he thought the yellow flash had been reborn. Like Naruto, Minato Namikaze had cold blue eyes, blonde hair and spiky features. With a beaming expression, Jiraiya stated, "That boy is much better than I suspected." It is possible that Jiraiya's remarks and expressions indicated his involvement in training Naruto, similar to how he trained the yellow flash. As he connected the dots, the Raikage's face shone with a small smile. Naruto's significant win could suggest that he was poised to make his own mark in the ninja world, just like his father did. Lee greeted Naruto with a smile on his face as he returned to the competitor's stand. His chest was shivering and his arm felt cold when he raised it for a thumbs up. "Naruto, I am impressed by your speech and feel honored that you stood up for Tenten's honor." With a smile on his face, Naruto expressed his appreciation for the recognition. "It's not a problem at all." Lee's breathing leveled out as he sat down on the wall next to the railing. While Naruto sought a place to stand, he observed Gaara stare at him with shivers running down his spine. He could only imagine the situation when he was with Gaara, who would be Temari's worst fear and severely cripple her. "It could be that I overexerted myself." The nine-tailed fox made a statement by saying, "Foolish boy. It is not possible to go too far when battling an enemy. Fear is the sole source of constant respect." It was his belief that respect and fear were intertwined, but he couldn't fully concur. If he could only earn respect by beating his opponents to the point of hurt, what was the use of having such disrespect? Would people be as scared of him as they were of any other human being? He didn't deserve the prestige and fame that it brought him, if only his enemies were willing to distance themselves from him. He was the one who caused his reputation to be so unfavorable, not the fourth Hokage, which is the only difference. Yujito's laughter, which seemed like an inside joke, caused Naruto to break out of his mind. "What is your request?" he asked. Her smile grew wider as she didn't respond to him, yet she continued to smile with ease. Naruto shrugged off his worries, hesitant to speak with her if she was only going to be indistinct. Upon reaching his destination, he rested against the railing, standing in close proximity to Lee. Shikamaru's early exit left Lee as his only ally. He rummaged through his thoughts and then heard the buzzing of Shino's Kikai increase in speed. Although Kurenai didn't disclose his identity for obvious reasons, he was aware that Shino employed Kikache, which were insects that had the ability to drain his chakra. He was known for his ruthlessness and Naruto knew that he was out to get assailant. His blood is what he breathed. His victory over Temari was a clear indication of why Shino felt such pride and determination after defeating Hinata. Shino was positioned beside him, his hands in the pockets of his jacket. "Naruto," the speech was captivating, with a tone of fury that left him speechless. "It was important to me because of its relevance to my aim," she said. "You humiliated Hinata and then pushed her when you knew she didn't want to fight." The issue was not something Naruto wanted to deal with at the moment, leading him to frown from irritation. "The fight was not enough for her to love me," as she confessed. "Her problem is the one that needs to be addressed, not mine." He grumbled about that. Although it was true, it wasn't the correct statement to make. Shino observed him closely. He twisted his lip down in disgust, which could have been revolting. Our Aburaim can differentiate between their emotions and the task at hand. If you have that mindset, I am resolute in my efforts to triumph over your weakness without any hesitation. He departed, his Kikai making a bothersome sound as he did. Naruto's sigh was heard as he put his arm around his chest. He devoted himself to finding his center and meditating on the energies around him, until a buzzing feeling from his trance suddenly appeared and caused him to grimace with scowl. What took place? It appeared as though an external device was attempting to jam his sensor. He looked for it in the old-fashioned way, but couldn't find anything that could be attributed to it. With a stoic attitude, he began to meditate again, hoping to find his center and release all his worries. Genma stated that he was prepared to start the next round after returning to the arena. Yujito Ni and Rock Lee are set to face off in their next bout. Yujito got up and headed towards the arena. Like his predecessors, Rock Lee walked at a more relaxed pace and didn't feel as full of energy as he usually does. Upon reaching their initial positions, they squared off. Genma stated to them that they must adhere to the same rules, but their decision will be finalized at the end of the game. Let the Chunin exam's sixth match commence. Lee exclaimed, flashing in front of Yujito and forcefully piercing her stomach with his fist. Yujito was unable to stop as Lee went missing, but he managed to make a comeback and kick her in the face with his shins. Yujito sat motionless, her nose being compressed by the impact of the punch. "You're playing for victory, right?" she muttered as blood ran down her nose. Lee made contact with the ground. Pointing out the sky, he held his hand out. "After the brutal beating I received from him, I thought I would rather fight Niji during these exams, but now I may never get to see him in person as a fellow shinobi." As his voice grew tired, he grumbled, he didn't deserve to be subjected to career-related consequences because of his unconventional thought process. Yujito adjusted her nose with her fingers and removed blood from her lips. His mindset was flawed and it annoyed me. Did I go too far? If it enables him to recognize that trusting in destiny was an unwise decision, then everyone benefits. Lee's response was, "What if he doesn't realize it?" with a grimace on his lips. Lee opened his bandages and proceeded to open the first gate. What next? He scoured Yujito, trying to make her slip away so that he could catch her off guard. He wasted no time in taking his chance and kicking her high into the air. Following her like a leaf in the breeze, his clothing tightly gripped them together. Primary Lotus. Lee yelled out, but the bandages that covered Yujito became black before disappearing and being burned. He utilized Yujito's back as a springboard, rolling away and landing on the ground. The gate's use was a double-edged sword, as it offered him significant power but at the expense of his physical health. Despite not having fully recovered from his initial use, he had faith in himself to end the fight before the damage was done. After landing, Yujito's neck was broken and she passed through several hand seals. The impact of Niji's chakra was still affecting her system, and even if she could activate the chakra, it would not be as effective as passing a water flow through her eye. Despite this, she was able to use the technique without wasting any chakra and fired a massive ball of fire at Lee, who jumped over it as the sky-blue chakra spiraled around him. The third gateway, the Gate of Life. Despite his skin turning red, Lee brought his leg onto Yujito's head and then struck her arms with an X instead of the usual arrow. Yujito was kicked into the air by Lee while she pushed forward. The fourth gate is the entrance to the inflicted pain, referred to as the Gate of Pain. He kicked Yujito once more, disregarding the pain and the burning sensation from the blue fiery chakra surrounding her form. In order to avoid being smashed around, she substituted herself with a log. Despite her ability to heal herself at a faster pace than most shinobis and her high pain tolerance, Lee was always pushing her boundaries when he attacked her. The Raikage forbade her from becoming Matatabi, or the Two Tails, and she faced a challenge to limit the number of ninjutsu she used to 5 per match, not including taijutting. 2 ninjutsu rounds had already been performed by her. She only needed to add 3. Yujito was hit by Lee's charge after hitting her on the ground, but she vanished into a clone afterimage. The 5th arc, Gate of Infinite. Lee maneuvered around the approaching fireball and attempted to instigate another wave of punches and kicks. He interacted with Yujito, but his lightning clone exploded, shocking him and decimating his entire body. Before Lee could heal, Yujito smirked and unleashed a blue fire jet that consumed his flesh. I refuse to surrender. Lee grimaced, forcing himself onto his back. I'll stand by my ninja spirit and my teammates' glory. He exclaimed as he ran, reaching for his right arm and right leg in pain. After reversing the fire stream technique, Yujito felt her chest sink as she took on Lee's last-ditch effort to release the air. She collided with the wall, causing it to crack and shatter, but was still conscious as she staggered towards her feet, blood streaming out of her veins. Genma's fear of Lee was evident when she saw him collapse shortly after hitting Yujito, as the 8 gates and his burning alive were having an impact on him. Yujito Ni triumphed and urged for Lee's medical attention as soon as possible. Her most severe wounds were treated by the blue chakra that swirled around her. It's necessary for me to seek medical help as well. Genma asked, are you correct? After rolling the Senbon. He shrugged off the request with a firm, I can't refuse it like that. Looking at Lee, she felt a smile on her face. He compelled her to abandon her small endeavor. He and Niji were exceptional individuals, surpassing her expectations. She found it to be more entertaining than she had anticipated, putting limitations on herself, which made passing the exams less difficult, necessitated her to have quick thinking to emerge victorious. It felt like she was taking the Chunin exam again, but with a real twist. Yujito and Lee both went to the medical bay, but Naruto was already inside the arena when Shino followed suit. He was told that he had to face Shino, who played his part in the fight against Gaara. Shino proved to be a relatively effortless opponent. He had the capacity to take him in. Genma asked, are you up for it? Naruto and Shino nodded in agreement. Let the 7th battle commence. Naruto stated, utilizing his sensor to locate the genuine Shino, as he was aware that Aburame had bug clones used to surprise him. When he did, the buzzing sensation returned and various signals appeared around Shino, impeding his ability to see. He resisted the urge to scream and instead opened his eyes to see Shino, who was protectively wrapped in Kakache. Is it accurate to say that you are a sensor? This is because individuals can detect the chakras of other people. My ability to counter that was acquired through my Kakache practice. 3 shadow clones were created by him and he moved with them as they attacked Shino. He was rewarded when his clones knocked Shino down, only for him to shake and then deform into thousands of Kikai. In an attempt to find hiding spots for Shino, Naruto had his clones run around the area. He also spent time looking around, moving around to avoid Shino's targeting of him rather than his clones. He was approached by a multitude of Kakache who spread out. When the swarm came within minutes, he moved around his clone and exchanged it with it, but the other critters ignored him. All of a sudden, he remembered the clone that found and fought Shino. With a smile on his face, he turned around to head towards the grassy area, creating 2 more clones that quickly sent squalls of wind across Shinochi. After hitting a hard wall, he fell and lay motionless on the floor. He had his clones detain Shino, but upon reaching him, the grassy area burst under him. Using his sensor, he searched for Shino and took into account his ability to jam it. He was now the only one in the group that kept chasing him, and the crowd had grown larger. Despite the wind blowing through them and scattering them, they continued their progress without any resistance. His attempts to locate his sensor were proving unsuccessful. Shino's headache caused by jamming of his chakra signals, which were too much to handle, was not a good thing. It's a joke that his fights were mostly unevenly played out. He either became completely outcast or excelled in his competitors. Even if Shino were to be found, it would most likely be a bug clone or some kind of trap in this fight. Eventually, the Hokage came around to him and completely covered him up. The drain on his chakra wasn't as severe as he had anticipated. The only thing he had to do was wait for the right moment to strike. Smoke billowed from a mundane stone, turning into Shino. It was a breeze, taking you down. Despite your improvement, why do you continue to be too direct? Shino was so convinced of his victory that he abandoned his chance to win. He depended on Shino to humiliate him, and it was a successful tactic. You're a superior fighter, even more so than Hinata. Shino looked a little embarrassed to hear about his teammate's defeat. Hinata may be haunted by your actions, but what happened to her once you embarrassed her? Naruto shook his head and noticed that his clones were running towards Shino. It's not my concern here. I've gone too far, but what actions can I take now? He wondered, frustrated by the odds he faced in his fight with Hinata. He was taken aback to see her defend himself with such indifference, disregarding opportunities. Was it because of a romantic attraction? Naruto imagined himself taking on Hinata's mind, for example, and Kurenai knocking him out without any physical altercation, even though he didn't want to confront her. For the first time, he expressed regret for taking the fight too far. Hinata may have refused to fight, but if she had engaged in a life-or-death battle, what would have occurred? His opponent and Temari had contrasting approaches, with the latter being more dominant. While Temari figuratively kicked Tenten while she was being pulled out by him, he knocked out an opponent who refused to fight back. Then Shino shrugged, dismissing his argument like a bugle. It could be true, but the damage has already been done. I acknowledge that I am aware of this. Naruto expressed a smile and stated that he could resolve the issue later, but at this moment, I have a game to play for. Naruto threw a kunai at Shino's shoulder, which was rapidly enhanced by wind chakra. As he moved to the side, his shoulder was struck by it. He was ambushed by Naruto's clones with a barrage of punches and kicks, before being knocked out alive. Naruto Uzumaki is the winner, as Genma announced. The Hokage of Shino were handed over to their master, leaving Naruto with exhausted yet manageable chakra reserves. Gaara entered the arena in a swirl of wind and sand as she was waiting for his turn to enjoy the afterglow of the enthusiastic crowd. Genma asked, "What's your job?" with irritation. "There should be a break in play." "I'm not concerned," Gaara declared, positioned beside Genma. "Leave the game in my wake." Naruto's chakra reserves were revitalized as he consumed a soldier pill. Genma sighed, "Wow, what the hell am I supposed to do now?" Shino should be allowed to exit the arena before anyone else. The medical bay was escorted by him to take Shino and the medics. After a brief period, Yujito returned to the arena in flames alongside the competitors. Genma shrugged off the question, "When is the match over?" She sported a smiley face. "Exciting. I have the opportunity to defeat the Blade of Illusion in his own backyard. Will you allow the Jinchuriki of an inferior-tailed beast to walk all over you?" The nine-tailed fox taunted. Naruto shook his head in an instant. He reported that his sensor had returned to its normal state and Yujito's chakra was piercing. She was freed from Niji's foreign chakra and her chakra flow returned to its normal state. "You're not capable of winning anything," she said. The Nine-Tails chakra flowed through his entire chakra network, causing his eyes to turn red as both Gaara and Yujito were affected. The air grew thick as Gaara and Yujito took the bait, with the One-Tails and Two-Ts having their chakras spiking in time with Naruto's, and the Nine Temples challenge. The chakra of the other tailed beasts vanished just as tension was about to increase. Naruto allowed the flow of the nine-tailed fox's chakra to dissipate as he closed his eyes. Upon opening his eyes, they appeared to be normal blue. "State it plainly." The tension in Genma's body washed away, and he grimaced as well. "It looks like a grand finale is about to occur, right?" The three Jinchuriki nodded in agreement. Let the final contest between Naruto Uzumaki, Yujito ni, and Gaara be a gust of wind strike the side, revealing Kakashi and Sasuke. Sasuke was scowling while Kakashi maintained his composure. His clothing had also undergone a change, with mostly black clothes and bandages on his arms. "Are we late?" Sasuke inquired. "Irrespective of this, you are in a predicament." Sasuke reacted with anger, biting his lips in frustration. "You're out of the competition, but if you win this one, you can still participate in the fight. Although you won't be promoted, you will have the opportunity to demonstrate your skills to others." As Sasuke was about to depart, Kakashi placed his hand on his shoulder instead. "Let's avoid any reckless actions, Sasuke," he said, shaking his head in frustration and giving Kakashi a grimace. "Shut up, folks. I put in a lot of effort and worked hard for these exams, but you were the one who advised me to take it or let me go on my own. My chance to be promoted was ruined because of your laziness," and Kakashi felt no remorse for his decision. Despite his efforts, Sasuke was not prepared to face Gaara and emerge victorious in the battle. He knew that if he didn't win, a serious injury or death could befall him, regardless of his status. "Irrespective of your words, I am not opposed to hearing from you." Naruto's face softened as he faced Sasuke. "You're in a vulnerable position, so win's better." He smiled at him. "I'm hoping to fight you, but I don't know who betters you." Even though it was a series of mishaps, Naruto found it astonishing how well Sasuke was treating him, and she smiled at him. It could be that the cause of it was all arranged in one fell swoop. "Thanks for your support, Sasuke." Genma was slightly annoyed and said that they had enough interruptions. Raid whispered in his ear, "It's Dash," as he approached. Genma's gaze lit up as she looked at him with a smile. Genma brought 2 sets of Senbon, one being lengthier than the others, after Raid left. "I request you to remove a Senbon from my hand. You'll be matched with someone who has the same size Senbon as you." What is the reason behind Yujito's question? It seems like the rules were altered for this particular game. It's going to be a tag team fight. The rules are the same, but this time you'll have to work with your partner to overcome the opposing team. It's intended to assess your aptitude for working with people in an unexpected circumstance. "Is it possible for me to advance in my career?" Sasuke asked, hoping. "No, you don't," he replied. With a grimace on his face, Sasuke's expression was dishearteningly clear, causing Genma to look up with disbelief. "Nevertheless, you can increase your visibility and make yourself a preferred choice among customers." Sasuke gave a shrug and took the Senbon from Genma's hand. Naruto, Yujito, and Gaara followed his example. "You'll have a short time to talk to your significant other. Learn about it and plan to conquer your rivals with it." After examining his short one, Naruto glanced at it and proceeded to approach Yujito, who was cognizant of the size of her Senbon. "It's as if we have a romantic relationship." Yujito's expression was derogatory. "We are, is it?" She sighed and Naruto's face lit up with a smile. "After that, I'll give myself a proper introduction. I am Yujito ni. I specialize in utilizing Matatabi's chakra." "Are those the 2 tails?" "Absolutely," she affirmed. "No, really." Naruto's response was, "You know what you're doing, but it's an S-rank secret. I'm not capable of stating it in one sentence, so I have no need to explain it to everyone." Yujito's expression was one of resignation, shrugged off. "Fine. I'm pretty sure I could take all 3 of you in if I let loose, but I enjoy creating challenges for myself, so I won't do it. Did you know that you're now much taller than you were before?" Naruto had to look up to see Yujito's face, as she was just as tall as Kurenai. Yujito nodded once more, beaming with pride. "I employed a transformation seal to decrease my height. Conceived the concept from my own imagination. Niji's mistake led to his mishap when he severed my chakra network, but the medical team saved me as quickly as possible. Taijutsu is my preferred martial art, and I also incorporate a bit of ninjutsu into my training. A large number of them are the wide, explosive type rather than the narrow, precise kind. With a smile on his face, Naruto expressed his satisfaction in not having to fight Yujito for it. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. Although I specialize in Genjutsu, I have knowledge of a few wind-style ninjutsu styles as well. Taijutsu is not a unique discipline for me. I look forward to working with you. Instead of engaging in a fight, I encourage you to embrace the truth instead. To shake, Yujito drew a hand out of her mouth. Partner. If that is true, then niggle your toes in the ring and we'll see what happens next. Naruto smiled and shook his hand at her. The Two-Tails Jinchuriki's unrelenting behavior caused it to fade in his memory. One query, please. What's the meaning behind this? Yujito quipped. The exam was challenging, and I felt Lord Raikage wanted a Jinchuriki to represent the Cloud Village. Due to the unavailability of our other Jinchuriki, he selected me and made sure I wouldn't encounter any issues with your village. Naruto retracted her hand. Thanks for sharing this information with me. I'm enticing you to ask me a question now. Her voice softened and she whispered. Who is the one you're holding? Naruto asked, smiling with 9 fingers. Naruto asked for a nickname. What is it called? It's time, Genma said. Yujito's gaze set on moving, and she leaned over to whisper something in his ear, smiling enthusiastically upon hearing her plan. Are you up in the air? They muttered. Afterward, you can initiate the process. Gemma reacted in a typical manner. Just as Sasuke activated the Sharingan, Gaara uncorked his gourd. Naruto and Yujito flashed through hand seals during their battles. Yujito's mouth ejected a blue flame-colored gout, which was then strengthened by Naruto wind and expanded its area of influence. The jutsu's impact was so powerful that Naruki couldn't believe its strength, as it struck with a massive shield-like dome of sand to defend Gaara and Sasuke. The fires persisted for what seemed like an eternity before fading away. Gaara's sand shield seemed to shimmer in the light, and as it fell, the sound of glass breaking rippled across the arena. Before he could fully appreciate the impact of his and Yujito's partnership, Sasuke had already made a significant leap forward and raised his arm to prevent his kick from hitting him. Yujito jumped and was about to strike Sasuke's face, but a sand pillar struck all 3 of them, forcing them to jump off. Uchiha was warned by Gaara, "Don't try to take my prey," in a grim tone. After jumping in the opposite direction as Naruto and Yujito, Sasuke scowled. I'm uncertain of what to do, can you explain? He blurted out and charged towards Naruto, accelerating at a rapid pace. Naruto attempted to stop Sasuke's lunge punch with his hand, but he realized that it was a feint and resulted in delivering 10 minutes of bone-crunching air. He retrieved several shuriken and hurled them at Sasuke, then proceeded to throw 3 kunai at Gaara to hold his sand and allow Yujito to attack Gaara with a flick of her fiery cat's claws. Sasuke used a kunai to deflect the shuriken while Gaara's sand rose to protect him. With the shuriken at his disposal, Naruto proceeded to land a roundhouse kick on Sasuke's face, which he successfully disregarded by twisting it upside down and saving himself. The assault persisted and Sasuke was thrown off course. He and Yujito met a considerable distance away from the opposing team to regroup. What's the purpose of this? Yujito questioned. Sasuke's speed was not as impressive as his abilities, but his Sharingan and Taijutsu made up for it. He struggled with the Sharingan in his Genjutsu, and despite having the ability to defeat Sasuke's Fire Dragon Jutsu using the wind style, great breakthrough technique, he couldn't do so. After Naruto told her about his observation, Yujito asked him if it was true. My most potent lightning jutsu could take me to Gaara, but setting up the right opponent will be a challenge. Sasuke's death is the only thing left for you to do. His velocity is comparable to the manner in which sand charged towards them, spiraling upwards and falling like a star. He was thrown out of the sand by Sasuke, and Yujito ran off. Naruto employed his sensor to detect the chakra surrounding Sasuke's legs, which was exerted more force than any other area of his body. The essence of Yujito's message to Naruto was conveyed to him. He was pursued by Sasuke, who then used a clone to divert his attention and return to Yujito's side. I have a feeling that I can exhaust him to the core. It's impossible for him to maintain that pace forever. With a smile on her face, Yujito conveyed her admiration. He said, "Just wear me down, I can knock him down. Afterward, we'll take care of Gaara's needs." Naruto nodded and remembered how Sasuke had used a shuriken trick to beat his clone. "Let's commence." They parted, and Sasuke rushed in to confront Naruto, who was blocked by a gust of wind. Gaara's sand burst just before Sasuke could make some distance with him, dislocating them. Naruto sustained a cut on his left thigh after taking too much time to get away from Gaara's attack. Naruto Uzumaki yelled, "My sand will not break away." Gaara urged him to speed up his strands by holding his hand out. "I will take your life, and if I do," Naruto said, holding his hands in the cross-ceiling. Jutsu, the shadow clone, was able to avoid Gaara's sand and rescue Sasuke by dispersing 25 clones. Sasuke employed shuriken, kunai, and taijutsu to remove his clones, but Gaara prevented them from happening as his own sand was spreading. With a beaming smile, Gaara declared, "You cannot win. We are just like each other, but my life is more precious than yours." Shortly after this scene began, only 5 of Naruto's had left. Gaara's sand would have crushed the 3 of them as they ran through hand seals. Sasuke pursued one of the other 2, who then began to flee. Just as Naruto felt Sasuke's chakra spike, he turned around and flashed through his hand seals at the right moment. Wind palm style, the violent wind engulfed his hands with wind chakra as he forcefully pushed them into Sasuke's stomach, pushing him away like a cyclone. Sasuke was caught by the other Naruto and his arms were clung together. Sasuke was punched by Yujito, who jumped in front of the blue fire wrapped around her hand and used her cat's paw to strike him. Sasuke screamed in agony and was sent to slide down the ground. Naruto's 4th clone was killed and Yujito unleashed his powerful weapon and destroyed 3 of the other heinous copies that Gaara had taken down. The chakra supplies of Naruto in the real world started to dwindle due to various factors. It was a relief that he still had some of his chakra intact. He observed Sasuke, who was barely conscious and badly burnt, his shirt burned by Yujito's attack, and flashed through hand seals. Despite his Sharingan being off, he was confident that it would be effective. His eyes flickered red for a short time. Naruto stated that Sasuke's whimpering was necessary to keep him from being in the fight. His inner parts were made to churn by it. He spoke to Yujito and declared, "I will keep Gaara occupied." "You arranged your jutsu accordingly?" "Yes, please." Naruto approached Gaara and observed the bloodlust in his eyes. Sand defended himself by asking, "What is your purpose in this life?" "Killing others is the only way to live, proving your superiority by crushing and destroying everything that comes into play." Naruto leapt over incoming waves of sandy beach, crouched under sand spears, and dodged shuriken as he attempted to outrun Gaara. "Do you think that having friends fills the emptiness in your heart, as someone who longs for meaning and purpose, will eventually lead you to believe that even those closest to you will betray you too?" Naruto trailed Gaara, his fist entangled in the sand. He spread himself between him and Gaara, cutting the sand before jumping away so that he could be caught. "I filled the void by killing everyone who stood in my way and I'll kill anyone who tries to prevent me from living fully. I will never." Heavenly Spear! Yujito shouted. An unobservable flash appeared, revealing a blue bolt of forked lightning that struck Gaara's sand shield and penetrated his chest. Naruto seized the chance to take a deep breath and drift off as he made his way back to Yujito. "The fight is still ongoing," the nine-tailed fox told him. "It's only a matter of time before Shikaku wakes up." Gaara's yawn was marked by the cry of "bloody," as she clutched a bloody hand in her hands. He exclaimed, "It's my blood," as a sandstorm gently enveloped him. Gaara had undergone a horrifying transformation after the tornado finally dissipated. The upper part of his body was covered in sand, creating two massive arms with blue markings and claw-tipped hands. His back had a spiked tail that protruded and flicked inexorably. He had black scara around his eyes, and an orange-pointed star with 4 points for illumination was present on a black background for pupils. A spooky smile drifted across his sandy face, flashing with fanged teeth. Gaara's desire to kill him left Naruto feeling uneasy and unsure, prompting him to declare, "I will never leave." The situation was akin to reenacting the Battle of Orochimaru, except Yujito was in charge and could have made all the difference. He surveyed Sasuke's health and found that his breathing had become slow. Gaara slithered and leapt to make room between him and Naruto and Yujito. She then pounced on the ground beneath them, barely skidding past them as they fled in opposite directions. Yujito threw a kunai at Gaara and smiled as it collided with his arm. "Naruto, I'll hold him off." She then activated her tailed beast taijutsu. This time, it will be less challenging to overcome his defense. Naruto attempted to identify weak points as a result of his confrontations with Yujito and Gaara. Gaara's lower half was not covered by his sand shield, making him more vulnerable to attacks than ever before. Specifically in the area behind his tail. Naruto created multiple clones and connected them to a kunai, who then assisted Yujito in burning Gaara's sand while it slowly reformed. Naruto utilized the Sakura illusion to impede Gaara's attack, even as his clones were being destroyed in different directions. Gaara stumbled, but eventually recovers and incapacitates Yujito with his thick sandstone arm. Just as he assumed, the Genjutsu was not capable of holding him back. Nevertheless, Gaara's temporary disconnection enabled his counterpart to unleash the explosive kunai beneath Gaara. Gaara was able to defeat the clone by flicking his tail, but the tag's explosion caused significant harm. Despite the destruction of his tail, Gaara maintained his position as more coalesced sand particles created a new tail. The fury of a vengeful tailed beast was wielded by Gaara as she killed the other clones of Naruto. The removal of dust from the rampage resulted in sand being applied to Gaara's entire body, with the exception of his legs. "Great!" Gaara exclaimed loudly. When the prey is on the brink of death, what the victim does to preserve its existence determines its value in this world. Naruto Uzumaki's laughter was overshadowed by a harsh, unfeeling noise. "I will truly justify my existence." Yujito responded with her cat's paw before cutting off his torso and unleashing a powerful kick that sent the Jinchuriki flying. Naruto grew weary of the fact that Gaara wouldn't be able to endure explosions without end. Yujito seemed to be screaming, "Naruto," until Naruto noticed Sasuke approaching him, as if she had not been able to increase her ninjutsu output and hurt him faster than necessary. His face was drenched in pure hatred, and lightning wrapped around his right hand, creating the sound of 1,000 birds calling out. Sasuke's speed and proximity to him prevented him from evading the technique effectively. He was aware of the Chidori's strength after observing Kakashi using it in the Land of Waves. He looked at Sasuke's face and observed his expression of anger, hate, and pain transform into something that was difficult to recognize. He started to slow down and the chirping sound began to fade away as a look of regret came over him. Unfortunately, he was incapable of stopping his momentum entirely, and even though his hand wasn't completely eclipsed by lightning in the sky, his fist still lodged in Naruto's stomach. His irate expression transformed into a severe frown. "I never imagined you'd step down so low to use my family's death as a way to attack me." Sasuke's tone was gentle, and Naruto could sense the betrayal in his voice. "What?" Before Naruto could ask what Yujito said, he choked Sasuke to the ground. She snapped her fingers in the direction of Naruto's face. Naruto's focus was swiftly recognized as focus. With a blink of an eye. "Yeah. Is it a fact that He argued that the genjutsu he used on Sasuke was identical to Temari's hell-viewing jutna, but this was not his primary objective. The hell-viewing illusion was the final illusion he wanted to create. While fighting alongside Gaara, Sasuke had made an effort to shield him from the sand. He revealed his worst fears, his darkest dreams. He was disgusted by what he perceived as disgust. He believed that Sasuke was a Jinchuriki, and even though he didn't particularly like him, recognizing his status as such, it made them friends. With a sense of sympathy for Gaara, and having watched as his chakra spiked in unison with Yujito's attack, he knew it was time to end the fight. "Can you share some of the chakras that you have?" The nine-tailed fox stated that he didn't want to reveal his special ability, but Naruto was aware of its benefits. He won't be descending anytime soon. Is it true that everyone else is falling asleep in the arena? There were individuals lingering in their seats, affected by a foreign chakra that kept them alert. The Kage's box was surrounded by a purple barrier, which caused some disturbance. Naruto felt the surge of the nine-tailed fox's chakra through his own chakra system and used it, combining it with his body chakra as he sent a genjutsu to Gaara. The genjutsu's work on Gaara did not seem like a surprise to him, as he had already rid himself of the last illusion that Naruto used on him. If he were to fall under his spell, Gaara would find it difficult to sleep soundly. He was surprised to see Gaara freezing up. He was astonished to see his stained eyes return to their former shades of turquoise. He was surprised when the sand surrounding him collapsed. He didn't expect him to gaze at his surroundings, causing his eyes to widen and confused. "What is the question? What did you do to my mother?" Gaara asked, frightened beyond measure. Naruto was aware that utilizing the Nine-Tails chakra would greatly enhance his abilities, but he believed that Gaara would surpass it due to constant contact with Shikaku's chakra. If not. Naruto was on the verge of chuckling at the absurdity that his mind conjured up. The more he contemplated, the higher his wildest idea would be. Instead of causing harm to Gaara, Naruto caused Shikaku to become vulnerable and the tailed beast to go unconscious. He then turned his gaze towards Gaara and made the first move. With his back against the wall, Gaara was unable to escape. There was an overwhelming sense of terror in his expression. "How are you different from me?" Naruto sighed and crouched, gazing at Gaara. "I don't have to prove my worth by taking the lives of others, because I know that my friends will accept and trust me. The reason I live is to be acknowledged and feel content because it's what I want." "Are you not betrayed?" Gaara asked, his voice lacking the bitterness or bloodlust that Naruto had adapted to. Mizuki's face caught his gaze. "On a single occasion, I was employed by someone who wanted to use me for his own benefit." Naruto's face lit up with a small smile, and he felt Yujito approaching them. "There was a man who would risk their life to save me, and I am grateful for that." His thoughts were triggered by the thought that Iruka had taken the shuriken as a representation of himself. Despite everything, he remains an excellent person and good friend. My earliest genuine companion. I've come across other friends and I don't feel empty, worthless, or unloved when I'm with them. I have no qualms in imagining being betrayed by any of them. Before Gaara's gaze was revealed, Yujito had sat on one knee and stared at her with a small frown. We are both aware of the emotional and social implications of being hated or feared for something we didn't intentionally choose. Instead of trying to kill everyone, why not befriend them? You must have someone who is willing to give you a chance. The only thing left is to try and find them. She sprang to mind with a giggle and her lips flicked. If you can't, why not establish a friendship with your tailed beast? It may take some time, but it's worth it. Let me assure you. Gaara's blinked in an odd manner without any explanation. I can't say it enough. He took a moment to catch his breath, but couldn't express his thoughts. I give up, he finally said. He fell asleep as his eyelids flickered and drooped. Naruto and Yujito departed from Gaara at this point. Naruto readied himself for another fight after hearing and feeling ongoing skirmishes in the arena and beyond, stretching his sensor to its maximum extent. He would do his utmost to shield the village and its community from anyone who had the courage to destroy it. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button and subscribe for more content. Support the original author by clicking their profile link in the pinned comment of the first video of this series. They deserve the love. Want early access and exclusive content? Join my Patreon community, link below. Your support fuels these videos. Drop a comment with your thoughts, and I'll catch you in the next video. Stay entertained, stay safe.